Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we're going to talk about Merlin. We are going to talk about wizarding energy, which I normally do not talk about. It is normally not something that I'm too into energetically, but I do want to talk about it because I was on my consciousness call for the month and they were talking about Merlin energy, and it was not an energy that I normally play around with. So I thought we'd play around with that today and talk a little bit about alchemy, which to me kind of symbolizes Merlin energy, and it is something that we will do in our higher realities, in our higher consciousness, anchoring those realities in. We don't get the easy path of, oh, here's money, go create your reality. We don't get that. That's how the human realities work. We don't get that here. We get an idea, we get opportunities, and we have to then create something out of that and create our world and build our world from the ground up. Now, that's what we have to do. We don't get it kind of the easy way, in a sense. We have to do it the hard way, even though the human way really is the hard way. But when you're pulling out of the human realities and anchoring in the third dimensional realities, or pulling out of the third dimensional, anchoring in the higher realities, I think that was backwards, which because it kind of is backwards in a sense. We don't get, it's actually, we're doing it we're doing it the organic, easy way, but it doesn't feel like that because we're so used to the old way. We have been conditioned to do it the old way. That's our programming. That's our human DNA. Until that stuff gets overwritten, then we are embodying that human DNA and we're still projecting human realities. Now we have to break through all that programming. That's when we talk about breaking through our programming. That's what we're doing. We're breaking through all that human programming. We're breaking it down. The more light we bring in, the more we break down that human consciousness, and it leaves the body. And it can leave the body where we will get upset and bitch something out and scream it out, because that's a powerful word to say, I'm getting out of my system. We just don't do it around people. I'm going to bitch that out. I'm going to fuss about that. I'm going to get all this stuff out of my body. We might get physically ill and be throwing up, or we'll might have a lot of lung stuff going on. We might have a lot of, human symptoms of not being well, in a sense, and getting it out that way. We can sleep a lot of these clearings off too sometimes. Normally I'll start clearing in my sleep and have to finish it the next day. So there's a lot of things that go into creating a new reality. So Merlin energy was something that had come up, and I've always been more attracted, though, I will say, to the Merlin energy and the King Arthur energy than the wizarding, more updated Wizarding World, the Harry Potter type of energy. I have read all the Harry Potter books. I did enjoy the movies, but it didn't have, to me, Merlin is a little purer energy, even though all of the wizarding energy, to me, it's not pure in a sense. It kind of has a taint. It has distortions to it, like any energy. Even Christ's energy has distortions to it. To me, it's not the purest of the pure, but it is fun to kind of play around in the creation part, the alchemy part of this wizarding energy, and it's kind of fun. It's a magical, it's kind of part of it. It's all kind of wrapped up in the magical realm and those energies. In the beginning, we get really into the magical realms, the clouds and rainbows and unicorns, and that's kind of our gateway into higher dimensional reality. We get really into this foo-foo-y kind of fluffy stuff, and then we have to start aligning our realities and things get heavier. We might end up on the floor crying quite a bit. Sometimes before we get into the foo-foo, and then after we kind of start moving out of the foo-foo phase, the fluffy phase, which a lot of people will call it. And we have to start anchoring in our realities, and we're all on the floor crying. So if you had been on the floor crying, we've all been on the floor crying. So I've been on the floor numerous times crying. So it's just how it works when you're rearranging your whole life. It's just what happens. And everyone's going to go through that stage. And we kind of can disconnect a little bit, I think, from the magical parts of it, because we're so into the program clearing. We're so into the heavy parts of it. We're so into trying to rebuild our realities. We don't normally have a lot of money to work with. We have to start all over in every aspect of everything. We have to start over with everything. And that can feel like we've lost everything. And to people looking from a human consciousness, that's how we look to people. Batshit crazy in a sense, because it looks like we've lost everything. But we've chosen to let it go and rebuild again. And when you start to frame it that way, you can shift how you tell the story. You shift how you tell the story. Change the story. Merlinize the story. Make the story something else. I didn't lose my human realities. I chose to leave them. I chose to create something else and start over and create something soul aligned. And it's not as quick as just, snapping my finger in a sense in the beginning, because I have to clear all this human stuff that says I can't do that. I have to clear all this human stuff that keeps me bound to those realities, the shame, the blame, the guilt of leaving it, of not conforming. And we'll have that for a while. And I didn't realize I was having so much of that the last year or so, but I was having a lot of that because I don't conform anymore to those realities. And there is a guilt and a shame that we have to clear from that. Feeling bad about not being in those, feeling bad about not conforming, feeling guilty in a sense of leaving it all behind and starting over. So when you do get into starting over, and we're in the middle phase, which can last 3 or 4 years, depending on how much you go all into it, could last longer, but usually it's a minimum so many years where we don't have a lot of stuff. We have to rebuild. We get ideas. We get maybe people that come in to assist us with here, assist us with that, and we have to make something out of that. We have to Merlinize everything. And you might not realize that's what you're doing, right? And then we can get back, and that kind of connects us back, I think, into that magical phase again, where we look at the rainbows and the clouds and how beautiful everything really is here and what you have created. Even if someone in a third dimensional reality would look at that and say, wow, that you still don't have much. But everything you do have, you've aligned on a soul level. And you've aligned it to where it's going to support you in your next phase. And you also know how quick, once the momentum gets going in one direction, it's kind of like you have to clear off your ledger in a sense. And you have to work through all the karmic stuff, not just from this reality, from all your realities, and kind of get that off your books. And that can take some years of penance in a sense of going through, being on the other side of it, because it also brings your compassion through. Because when you don't have anything, you'll share a lot more than when you have so much. And you become sort of a different person. You become kind of, reborn in a sense, and you start to look at what you can play with. So if you do like the Harry Potter energy, you can work on it from that, from that aspect of yourself. If you like the Merlin energy, play with the Merlin energy. I was activating Merlin energy last night and playing around with it. And I found myself because Merlin didn't have a wand. He was too powerful for a wand. He would just sort of just do it on his own. So I was doing that last night in my sleep state and trying different spells, and I was getting a little bit better, and I'll be carrying that over. Kind of the sleep state's the portal we open it in, and now I'll be doing it in my waking state too and seeing what I can create there. But look at what you can shift and change. Look at where you're projecting your energy. Where are you putting your energy? People always want to tell me their priorities. I know what your priorities are and what you're putting your energy into. If you're feeding old human realities, or if you're believing old human beliefs, you're feeding old human, your human life. That's your priority, period. You don't have to tell me what it is. Look at what you're prioritizing. Look at what you're creating. Look at where your energy's going. Look at what you have the opportunity to Merlinize, and you're not doing it. Because it feels like it would be too hard, or it would take too long, or it would do this, or it would do that. Really look at what you're holding on to, because we do kind of have this, in the beginning, we had this idea that we can hold on to our old human realities and just the new will kind of come in. Not understanding we have to kind of change everything and realign everything and get rid of everything and kind of get everything back in a different phase. We don't really get that yet. We don't understand that yet, because if we did, we would stay longer on the floor crying. We don't understand that. We haven't figured it out yet. Even though I had so many calls on consciousness, so many hours of listening to people talking about this phase of their journey. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to have to do that part. Lucky for me, I just skip right over that part. Like, bullshit, no, I didn't. I just hadn't gone through it yet. I hadn't gone through that part. And when I hear anybody say, oh, that's not going to happen to me, I'm like, probably will a lot of times, because we just don't want to let that stuff go. So we have this phase where we're holding on and we're still trying to move on, right? So we're kind of creating this sort of push and pull where the whole reality collapses on top of us, i.e. then we're on the floor crying, trying to figure out what we did wrong, because our our ego or human consciousness is always going to play into, oh, you did that shit wrong. You fucked this up really bad. But our soul doesn't make us feel bad. That's all our human stuff coming up, and sometimes it comes up in those moments and you're kind of like, yeah, whatever. You know, this is exactly how it had to be for me to move forward, for me to move on, really move on and stop holding on. Because when you're trying to do both, it's just going to collapse on top of you. You're almost pulling the walls down is what you're doing. Holding on over here, trying to move on over here, and it's going to collapse on top of you. Because we can't keep the old. They are not aligned. Whether it's people, places, cars, homes, doesn't matter. And our human realities, people in their human consciousness and human realities are going to look at new earth realities, higher consciousness realities we're anchoring in, the life we choose to live, and think it looks batshit crazy for a while. Until we get to a different phase of it, where we start to see the newer realities come in. We start to feel that abundance energy inside all the time. Money no longer is an issue anymore. It stops being a limit anymore. We look at why it's been a limit for us. Anything we have said, it's a limit. And for a while, money has to be, because you don't know what you should do with it. You're still going to feed old earth stuff with it. So there'll be a long period of time where you don't have it. And you have to kind of be reconditioned on what it's there for. It's not really for you. It's for what you can create with it, what you can do with it, how it's going to support your vibration. It's not for you to feed human consciousness anymore. So there's a lot of parts and pieces to this journey, and everyone's going to be in a different place. And that doesn't mean you did it wrong. Or if you haven't been on the floor crying yet, you haven't gotten to that part yet. Because most of us end up there at one point or the other. But we did in our human consciousness too. Now we just choose to do it. Or we think we're choosing it, but we're still kind of being dragged through it because we don't want to let go of the old stuff yet. So, okay. Merlin Energy. Have fun with it. Harry Potter energy, if you want to go there, you can activate that. Just know there is some distortions to it, so you're going to have to work through that. Because it is that spell energy, like, you know, kind of. And that's been kind of different songs have been playing with me lately. You know, Abracadabra, one of the old Buffy the Vampire Slayer songs about witches and spells. And it's kind of like what happens in 3D. Like everyone's kind of, there's people say, oh, they're asleep. You know, when you're in that consciousness, you're asleep. You don't really know what you're kind of a walking zombie. You're kind of like the Walking Dead in a sense. You don't really know what's going on. You're not really alive. You're in this kind of comic strip. You're in this video game. You're playing in this kind of a joke reality, and you don't even know it's a joke. But when you can look back and kind of see it's a joke, it makes it a little bit easier to move on from it. You know, you don't feel the threats of that reality anymore. You kind of like, yeah, it's kind of just a joke reality. And if you're not threatened by 3D anymore, because 3D will always use threats to kind of bring you back in. When you're not threatened by that anymore, and if you don't feel the threat of the threat or the fear of the threat, it's no longer a threat. It has no power anymore. You kind of break the spell. And we break the spell over time. Just like we wake up over time, we break the human spell over time. I can always look at people and I know you're still going to still bewitched. So what Tabitha used to do on Bewitched, she couldn't move her nose, so she'd do it herself. She's still bewitched. So if you want to have fun with it, I might actually do that. I might do the twinkle of the nose when I try my Merlin energy and bring a little bit of Tabitha in there and twinkle my nose. So just look at what spells you still believe. If you start even taking it that way, what do you still believe in? What spell are you still under that this has to be this way? What is your limit? It has to be this way. Where do you feel guilt about leaving the old realities behind? So, okay. I don't want this to be too long. One of my platforms won't let me go over 15 minutes. So, okay. Keep practicing your magic and keep practicing the art of intuition.